The Home Tech Podcast is supported by you. To find out more, go to HomeTech.fm/support. This is the Home Tech Podcast for Friday, June 7th. From Sarasota, Florida, I'm Seth Johnson.
And from Denver, Colorado, I'm Jason Griffin. How you doing, Seth? I hope you didn't place any bets, like on sports or anything this week.
Yeah. I did not have any good picks on our HomeKit or an Apple Keynote draft that we did, right? Like
you certainly didn't. I'm not trying to pile on, but yeah.
Well, my pain is everyone else's gain, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. This was a good instance to be wrong, I suppose. Yeah. Apple,
go ahead and prove me wrong all you want. I'll continue to say they're not doing anything over there while they just blow stuff completely out of the water.
Yeah, this was quite the WWDC. In case, just for the benefit of folks who may not have listened last week, we did some predictions, and Seth was, as we mentioned, way off the mark. I think I did okay. I'm trying to remember exactly what I said, but so we had three predictions, right? We had, is HomeKit even mentioned, right? Now, given the history of WWDCs recently, this is not an unreasonable question. Now, in hindsight of this most recent one, it seems ridiculous to even ask that because there was a lot, I guess not like a ton with HomeKit specifically, unless you count the Home app, but we sort of segmented that out, right? That was question number 2. Is the Home app updated in any meaningful way? Seth, you predicted no. I think I predicted no there as well. With the one caveat that, like, if they got rid of the red flower wallpaper.
From what I understand is they got rid of the backgrounds. I mean, they have more backgrounds too this year. So, like, it was updated. So, there we go.
It was definitely updated. And is the HomePod even mentioned? So, reading these questions now, you can see the lens through which we were looking at WWDC ahead of time. And like you said, we were actually pleased to be proven wrong. There's a lot of activity on all of these.
Definitely. Well, we'll get to that, but what do you say first? We jump into some home tech headlines.
Let's do it. All right. Teeing up our headlines here, Seth, I wanted to give a quick nod to a new webinar series that we're doing at One Vision Resources, the company where I work at. And wanted to quickly plug this. We'll have it in our show notes at HomeTech.fm/261, or you can head on over to onevisionresources.com/service webinar and check it out. It's the Reimagining Service webinar series. And this is going to be a monthly series of webinars that we're doing where we're going to talk about tips and tricks and best practices that anyone can use to go out there and really rethink service to make it more streamlined, more efficient, and more effective. You know, we talk to integrators all the time, and dealing with service is a massive, massive challenge. And, you know, it can really feel, frankly, like trying to outrun an avalanche sometimes. And we've got quite a bit of great information we're going to be sharing on these. So definitely go check that out. And lastly, I'll mention that the first one is going to be coming right up here next week, Wednesday, June 12th at 1 p.m. Eastern. So again, head over to onevisionresources.com/service-webinar or check out our show notes at hometech.fm/261 for more information. We'd love to have you there.
Yeah, and that was pretty good for just off the cuff, off the top of your head. I'm pretty impressed. Good job, Jason.
Yeah, and how'd I do?
Yeah, it was really good. It was better than good. I'm going to fumble through this next story. So
I try.
AT&T is planning to officially launch its new streaming version of the full DirecTV product in the third quarter of 2019. And John Donovan, CEO of AT&T Communication, lavished some high praise upon it. AT&T has been referring to the new streaming DirecTV product as a thin client, and the service will use an IP connection and instead of a satellite dish, and will operate on a proprietary Android TV set-top box that AT&T is currently testing. Sounds kind of interesting.
Yeah, no, it's pretty cool. This actually makes me think we've had a lot of conversations about streaming, and we got a great, thoughtful email several months back from Robert, friend of the show, and he mentioned that, you know, for all the talk of new streaming services, one of the things that gets lost in that conversation is that it would be a big benefit for both cable companies and consumers if we could just get away from sort of the legacy hardware, the satellite dishes and the coaxial cable, and just get everything coming into the house over IP.
Yeah.
And so this is a step in that direction. It's really a traditional DirecTV service in terms of what it offers, but it's going to come in over IP, so that'll open that service up to new segments of the market, and it'll be really, really interesting to see how many more companies follow suit.
Yeah, it says there that they're trying to reach customers that can't currently get satellite service. I'm trying to think of where that would be, but maybe like certain, if you're in a certain types of like maybe high-rise apartment buildings that you don't have the exposure and you can't get, whatever homeowners association is there that you can't get the satellite dish outside and that kind of thing. So yeah, that could be good for them.
Right. All right, well, moving on here, Snap AV is now distributing a full line of Yamaha AV products and integrating them with their Oversea Managed Services platform. 26 Yamaha products, including receivers, amps, wireless speakers, a soundbar, and a CD player. A CD player.
What is that?
Did a double take there. Will join the Snap AV line card. They got to get rid of those CD players somehow. And they will have some of the, quote, deepest oversea integration available thanks to Yamaha's MusicCast networking platform and rich API. This will be the first time Yamaha has made its custom-oriented products available online through a national distributor. Really interesting, especially the oversea part. I'm a huge fan of seeing that, so this is really cool.
Yeah, and being through an online national distributor is kind of crazy too, considering Yamaha's history. They've typically sold through rep firms and that kind of thing. So very interesting to see that move. Sign
of the times.
Yeah, it's definitely sign of the times, and I mean, this is another notch in the belt for oversea, right? Because like I think they are really going to be the ones that kind of take over, and everything else is going to kind of fall away. Especially now that oversea, Control 4 and Snap AV are combining their efforts there.
Right.
I really do think that we're going to be looking at that one particular company for all of our monitoring needs.
Certainly the odds-on favorite.
Yeah,
no doubt.
Exactly. Confirming rumors and, leaks that just were everywhere. Just unbelievable leaks. Ecobee.
Swiss cheese on this one.
Ecobee finally released details on the latest voice-controlled smart thermostat, simply calling it the Ecobee Smart Thermostat, not Ecobee 5. Like its predecessor, the new model has a built-in Alexa voice support. The unit features an improved microphone, improved natural language processing, a more powerful speakers, support for Spotify Connect in addition to Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and TuneIn. And it's on sale today, starting at $249. Comes with one of the little smart sensors.
Yeah, and you alluded to it there. They're breaking away from their naming scheme. Ecobee 3, 3 Lite, Ecobee 4. So going simply with the smart thermostat now. I guess it's accurate, not terribly creative, but that works. And powerful little device. Yeah, powerful little device, and $249 comes with that one sensor. Pretty compelling. I'm very curious to know about the sound quality. I mean, I don't want to dive into that, but like I see my Ecobee on the wall and I think about Spotify Connect or whatever playing through that, and I just, I guess it's kind of a cherry on top, but certainly not going to be a high quality audio experience, I have to imagine.
Greg is in the chat room saying, Ecobee is a great Canadian product, no tariffs.
There you go.
And of course he follows up with yet.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah. Don't hold your, don't get used to it, I guess, what I'm trying to say.
Right.
All right. According to the Dutch website iCulture, Philips is adding a couple of new gizmos to its repertoire of smart home products, including a smart plug that will work with a bunch of different platforms, including Amazon Alexa, Google Assistant, and even Apple's HomeKit ecosystem. So Philips kind of late getting into the game here with a smart plug, but it seems to make sense.
Yeah. Smart plugs are everywhere, and Philips is a huge brand, like and they have the entire Hue line, so they definitely have a following that they can tap into and get people to buy into those products. So wish them the best of luck. It's definitely interesting to see them supporting all three of the big giants right out of the box, right?
Like we've talked about before on the show recently, it's kind of like that's almost becoming table stakes, right? Like companies just have to come out of the gate with that. So it is interesting to see. And
you'd expect Philips of all companies, can't come up with just an Alexa enabled smart plug. They'd have to do all three. They're not just a small tiny company out there.
Right.
So speaking of small companies, IKEA Sonos capable Symfonisk wireless speakers have yet to make their official retail appearance, which should be August 1st. But we now know IKEA has plans to integrate these speakers into existing smart home control systems. The Swedish furniture giant says it will sell the Symfonisk Music Remote, a small puck-like device that will let users play, pause the the audio, skip tracks, and control volume on its Symphonist speakers. The remote will require the use of the $30 Trod-free gateway, and you'll configure its various functions by the Trod-free app. But IKEA hasn't said how much the new remote will cost. Yeah. Interesting.
It is very, very interesting. See IKEA just slow and steady. Like they're just coming out with more and more products here in the smart home space. And I forget when the first one was that we saw from them, but it wasn't that long ago. And they're just, they seem committed. And I'm sure this will come in at a very compelling price point, as most of their stuff does. So we'll have to keep an eye on that one.
Yeah, it looks good. That lamplight, I just can't get used to, though. Like, it's so ugly. Really, it is truly ugly.
That's the one that we
Photoshop.
I think it looks like a HomePod on a
saucer
plate.
Yeah.
On a saucer plate with some sort of weird device attached to the top. So yeah, the design on that one feels a little bit off, but IKEA usually does a really good job with that stuff. Obviously, that's what they're known for, I feel like. So it's an interesting, really, I just think it's a fascinating strategy that IKEA is pursuing to get into the business. Like, they're just such a monster company. So just enjoy seeing that.
Yeah.
Enjoy seeing how that's developing.
Yep.
But shifting gears here, Seth, what do you say we roll up our sleeves and jump into the main event of home technology this week? Apple held their Worldwide Developer Conference, WWDC 2019, and it was a doozy. There was quite a few things announced. We are, of course, going to focus primarily on those things that are relevant to the smart home, of course, but, giving a quick rundown for anyone who may not have seen the event and is curious. Top line view here, iOS 13, iPad OS, so an operating system dedicated for the iPad, pretty interesting. Mac OS Catalina, so a new version of the Mac OS.
Catalina wine mixer. That's the only thing that comes into my mind.
Right.
Like I don't know anything about Catalina except they have a nice wine mixer there.
Well, thankfully California's a big state, so they've got a lot of like cool places to pick from, but eventually they're going to run out, right? It's going to be like Mac OS San Bernardino.
Yeah, they could do like Redwood and Joshua Tree and all that stuff. So yeah, they have plenty of
they got a
places.
lot of room.
Yeah.
They got a lot of room. TV OS, by the way, no offense to anyone living in San Bernardino. I apologize for that. TV OS 13, some interesting stuff there. We're going to talk about a new Watch OS 6, new Mac Pro and XDR display, and then a few other grouped into this story. The other announcements is where we're going to actually spend the majority of our time, which is where they have HomeKit and HomePod listed on this Mac Rumors story. So a lot going on, as you would expect.
Never mind their $6,000 computer with its $5,000 Pro display with its $1,000 stand that you have to get. The monitor does not come with a stand. So yeah, $12,000 for a computer out the door, and that's just the base model. They're expecting this thing to run up into like 30 to 50 to be maxed out. Yeah, it's a beast.
See, I haven't read up on this one. That's got to be very targeted at like a very high end production.
Yeah. Exactly.
Video, music production, that sort. And that, of course, I mean, that's Mac that's always been a big part of their user base. In those environments, Mac is really the standard. So, Wow, I didn't realize that is. Yeah,
it's a beast. They were running a Logic. The only thing I really cared about, they were running a Logic project with 1,000 instrument tracks, so 1,000 tracks running, and then they had another 1,000 like sim tracks on top of that. So 2,000 tracks of audio in a single project, and it was just like, it's doing its thing. It was barely even moving the needle.
Yeah. Wow.
I don't need that.
Really cool.
I have a podcast we record 2 channels on, so like I mean, stick with the little one.
Yeah, I think my 5-year-old at this point, Mac Mini, is still chugging along.
Yeah.
Still doing great. So I'm good. It's a great computer. It's a workhorse. We've talked about that before.
Yep.
But cool. Well, where do you want to jump in here, Seth? I mean, I think maybe iOS 13 and the Home app is probably the place to start. There was some pretty significant updates there, and I think it's really.
Yeah. I mean, let's jump. Let's talk about HomeKit. HomeKit got some very interesting updates. One of the 2 big headline ones that they got were that it's getting this new secure video feature, which you can they actually, this is what the bulk of the announcements were about HomeKit on stage, where they kind of went over this process, and they said, hey, look, you have these video cameras that you put in your house, and they stream out to some random server and store video up there, and you don't know who those people are. You don't know what country that video is located in, and you don't know if it's secured. So Apple is actually going to be offering what's called HomeKit Secure Video, I think is what it said.
That is. Yep.
They're offering 10-day recording, 10 days worth of recordings. It's not counted towards your iCloud. This is all built into iCloud, so it's not counted towards your storage limit. Single camera can have a 200 gigabyte plan, up to 5 cameras with a 2 terabyte plan, and there's end-to-end encryption. So they're really there was a lot. This entire presentation that they were doing was really focused on privacy, believe it or not, with Apple, and they were really hitting on that pretty hard.
Yeah.
And the second part of that privacy push was this HomeKit enabled routers, which is fascinating. This is going to build possibly the HomeKit hub, I guess, into routers. Really, there's really not too much details on this other than kind of what they were saying, that you'd have the ability to basically monitor the HomeKit devices and the devices that you put into your house and figure out if they were doing something suspicious, like if they're uploading data somewhere else that they shouldn't be. The router, you'd be there on the router, you'd have some settings to shut that down. And I have a couple of screenshots of what that looks like. I'll have to put in our show notes because people have been kind of digging through the beta stuff and finding the stuff out. But fascinating that I think Linksys, they announced, we're going to be one of the first partners with that.
Mm-hmm.
But I suspect more and more will start coming out where they'll have HomeKit built right onto the router in the home. And that's a great place for it to live.
Yeah. No, I thought it was fascinating to hear that. And they did mention Linksys. They also mentioned Eero, which I thought was interesting. Of course, Eero
did they?
Recently being acquired by Amazon. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And then they also mentioned Spectrum, who's, of course, an ISP, who's going to be supposedly including this on some of their routers that they provide, which is also very interesting to consider that an ISP will actually be providing these HomeKit-enabled routers. That, of course, doesn't mean that the person getting the router has to use HomeKit, but still kind of an interesting wrinkle to the story. I had the same thought as you, does this actually mean that HomeKit will sort of live on this device in the sense of right now? So going back to secure video, for example, they talked a lot about the privacy, and they said, well, the problem with video that a lot of people are concerned about, and rightfully so, is that your video gets sent up to a cloud, and that's where it gets analyzed, and you really, for all intents and purposes, don't know anything about these servers or who's looking at these videos. And that's,
I kept thinking of Wyze cameras this entire time. I was just those Wyze, $20 Wyze cameras, where's that video going?
You just don't know. Exactly. And granted, maybe nothing is amiss there right now, but it's still just cameras, especially in the home, are so... I've gotten to the point where I can't, I'm just not super comfortable with that. So we have indoor cameras, but I typically have them sort of disabled, or unless we're traveling. I use them when we're traveling, but generally I just am not, I'm a little bit weirded out by video just constantly being recorded of me and my family in our home. Anyways, to get back to my point, he talked about how this video, the analysis of the video. So he talked about, all right, well, there has to be analysis done to see if it's a leaf moving, or if it's a person, or if someone's at your door, if it's a dog or whatever. And that analysis in most cases is happening on those servers. That's part of the reason that the video has to go up to those servers. And he talked about how this analysis is actually going to take place in the home locally, which I thought was really interesting. And so he talked about how that could happen on an iPad, a HomePod, or an Apple TV, or the 3 devices he mentioned. And the HomePod and the Apple TV make total sense to me. They're devices that are, generally always on, plugged in. But the iPad's always felt a little weird to me as a HomeKit hub of sorts. What happens if it's asleep? I don't know. I don't totally understand how that works. But the router, to get back to what started all of this, is having a HomeKit-enabled router, does that give Apple another place to sort of park the quote-unquote hub?
Yeah.
Does it replace the need for an Apple TV, or is the implementation going to be a little bit different? I think details are still spotty at this point.
I think spotty, but now that you said about that video, I forgot about that video analyzation, like that being done on the iPad, HomePod, Apple TV. Those are iOS devices. They have some serious horsepower behind them, especially the iPad. Now that that's kind of in play, you'd have to have iOS running on the router itself to do that, and run their machine learning and that kind of thing that they have developed specifically for iOS. So now that you say that, I'd probably say odds are the HomeKit enabled router is just more or less a device that you can control with your HomeKit app and kind of keep tabs on things, make sure that the devices that are connected in there. It would be really nice if Apple made a router and a Wi-Fi access point.
That would be cool.
It would be neat.
It'd
yeah,
be sweet.
They should take a look into that and see if there's anything.
Popular technology, Wi-Fi.
Everybody has to have it, but yeah. So now I think it's kind of be just like a HomeKit enabled router is just going to be there for kind of like an Apple stamped upon firewall, essentially, right? And that is easily controlled and makes sense to people through the HomeKit app. I think that makes more sense now that I think about it. And then all the fancy stuff, like video analytics and automation routines and that kind of thing, that all gets done on the stuff that has serious hardware behind it.
Has the horsepower.
Yeah.
Yep. Last thing on this that we didn't mention that is worth mentioning, the HomeKit Secure Video. Few manufacturers mentioned as the first ones out of the gate, and that will be Netatmo, Logitech, and then a company called Eufy, E-U-F-Y. I have to admit, was not familiar with them, but those are the three out of the gate, they said, with more to come.
Another couple things that popped up here. One was they mentioned Carplay, and this is one of the first times Carplay was going to get an update, which is great. I have a Carplay head unit in my car. It doesn't have any maps or anything on it. It just you get CarPlay and you plug your phone into it and your phone becomes the map, and that's awesome. But what they've done is they've updated the interface, they've made it a little bit better, but they put some buttons on there that you wouldn't have access to before. And one of the things they mentioned is that HomeKit would have an integration with CarPlay, so you could trigger automations from a button that is on your CarPlay dashboard, so to speak. And one of the examples they gave is that you can open and close your garage door. So if you have a HomeKit garage door or a HomeKit device that's hooked up to a garage door, you can actually push that button and trigger that event from happening as you're driving down the street. Which that is going to be great. That's awesome to have it right there on the dash. Just tap it and done.
Yeah. No, I think there's really, really logical use cases and integrations between car technology and home technology. If you have a smart home, it makes all the sense in the world to have that integrated with your CarPlay system. And so that makes a whole lot of sense. Very logical move on their part there. Speaking of automations, Seth, I don't know if we want to jump into the iOS 13, because this was big. I mean, this was we were joking earlier in the show how we thought the home app wouldn't see any significant updates at this developer conference, and we were wrong. It got a whole bunch of updates. So let's jump in and talk about those. Quite a bit going on there.
Yep. So my prediction of HomeKit not being the home app not being touched at all, completely wrong. And there were a number of just general...
It's just a little reverse psychology that you were using on Apple.
Right. I figured...
They definitely listened to the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. They listened to the podcast and they were like, no, we cannot have
all
this.
Right.
And
we got to shut Seth up.
You won't believe all the stuff they canceled and pushed off the stage just to put this on and shut me up.
Flexing your muscles.
Yep. So iOS 13 HomeKit app will have kind of a new... lighting interface for color changing lights. It's kind of nice. Motion sensors, thermostat. There's a new thermostat look for the control for the thermostat. They did a bunch of GUI updates, like user interface updates, which I think are all for the best. It's kind of tough to say that HomeKit has the best interface. It's always been a summary interface to me, where I can go in and quickly do stuff real quick, and I don't have to spend much time in the app. But it looks like they're leaving that in place, but they're also doing some more. You can do some more advanced things in it as well. I think they added leak sensors in and air quality sensors as well.
Yep.
and motion sensors, a little card for motion sensors. I think we have those now, but they're just not. It's kind of a weird setup for that. But you also get AirPlay 2 devices in there. So like the HomePod, HomePod. I have problems with saying, like, did the HomePod get mentioned? It did get mentioned, but in passing. And the applause lines when they were like, "Hey, the HomePod," and then people are like, "Oh, this is one of those times we're supposed to clap." Yeah, let's clap. So
got a little golf clap.
Yeah, it was just an unenthusiastic version of what was, everything else was like standing on the edge of standing on the chairs clapping, and then the HomePod gets mentioned and you're like, we still make that thing. So
there's that.
So AirPlay 2 devices can be included in HomeKit scenes and automations for the first time in iOS 13, which is huge, because that means people are excited about this. But like, if you could do this, like if you arrive home, start playing some songs on the Apple HomePod thing, and I don't know, Jason, that's one of those like things that integrators use as like a selling tool. But I gotta say, I've never ever used that like in actual living in my own house, or like when I go to install a Control4 system or something, when I put them in and I was like, "Hey, what do you want to walk into your house listening to every day? What songs do you want to listen to?" I don't think that has ever come up, not once. So I'm curious as to if you ever ran into that, where people wanted to walk into their house and be listening to music.
I honestly, I can't say that I did. And it's so funny because like it is one of those things that has that like we romanticize it. You walk in the door and the lights dim and the music comes on. And I think like the only people that I can think that would do that, like I don't know. I look at this through my lens, and my life is so chaotic right now with 2 young kids. And I mean, putting aside the fact that I work from home, so I'm not
You're rarely
like that
leaving. Yeah.
Sort of use case of walking in after a long day of work and the lights dim and the music comes on. But like, I just, to me, it's not there. But like I could see it for, if I was, for more like single, or maybe if you just don't have like the kids and the chaos. Like, because when I see myself walking in the door, I see like 2 bags of groceries, screaming kids, running around with their shoes on, and dirt getting all over the carpet. And like the last thing on my mind is like, what kind of relaxing music is playing.
Right. And
right. But that's real life.
Yeah. And that's just like the example that, again, it's being romanticized in the press and with tech pundits and that kind of thing. Like, oh, this is something that you can do, and it's great that you can do it, but nobody's going to do that, honestly. And like when I come home, I'm rushing in because I forgot my sunglasses or my wallet, and now the stupid music's playing. I'm like, Siri, shut up. Yeah, no, it's not really going to be how this thing works. So,
but it's still cool, it's cool. Like that HomePod and AirPlay 2 devices like can now be part of scenes
and automations.
Right?
So you can still trigger that from Siri, from Siri. You could say, Siri, do this, and have a custom automation workflow set up where it just kind of does its thing. So yeah, definitely.
Well, and the support for AirPlay 2 is big. Like we've seen such a big push from Apple in terms of getting AirPlay 2 out there, and you think of all the TVs that we talked about several months back that have AirPlay 2, so those will be able to be incorporated, and so you just see Apple slowly and steadily expanding the reach of HomeKit. And we've talked about it. You, to your credit, have really been beating this drum of like the framework is there, the foundation is there with HomeKit. They've got a very solid vision of how this all needs to sort of fit together. And it might be a little bit less flashy for the average person watching the smart home. Like if you're not really paying attention, maybe it's not as flashy or as sexy as what Amazon is doing with, their spaghetti strategy and new products coming out all the time. And Google is getting a lot of headlines. And Apple's been a little more off of the front page when it comes to this stuff. But the way that they're approaching it is fundamentally different than how Google and Amazon are approaching it. And I think it's a very, very interesting and very solid vision. And if they can just keep, like if we could have a few more WWDCs like this, where they keep working and plugging away at this stuff, it just becomes a very, very compelling offering.
Yeah, and like you said, the framework is there, the foundation is there, and they just need to draw the little lines. This is kind of what I've been saying about HomeKit since the very beginning, is that this is an amazing thing, not because Apple's doing it, not because it's how this was set up, and it exists on your phone, it exists on everybody's phone that's in the house. It all syncs together, and all you have to do to get more powerful integration with AirPlay 2, with location services, is have Apple draw that line, and we've kind of sat back and said, is Apple ever going to draw that line? And they've clearly been drawing lines from point A to point B for the past couple of years, and it's making for a very, very robust and healthy ecosystem that kind of got a lot of cruft at the beginning because it wasn't the spaghetti strategy where the lines were spaghetti noodles and they led off to nowhere. Everybody wanted to see massive growth out of this stuff, and Apple stuck to their guns, to their credit. I mean, as long as they did, and forced their vendors, for better or not, to build products that conform to the HomeKit ecosystem in a very particular way that I think is paying off for them now, because we're seeing. We're seeing like Amazon and Google kind of walk back their strategy of going out and talking to Amazon and Google servers, and how problematic that is. Where an Apple HomeKit system's all local. Like your hub is your iPad, your HomePod, or your Apple TV, which is probably in most cases. But that's sitting in the house, and that can run and do most anything and everything that you want to do with local control. There was a major Google outage over the weekend that affected like a ton of Nest devices, Nest thermostats, and cameras. Like those were down for quite some time over the weekend. I kind of made a joke that the entire tech press was on their way to to San Diego, or what is it, San Diego? So like no one really noticed, but there was a pretty major outage over the weekend, and that's what you run into with cloud services. And Apple stuck their guns, and one of the major things that isn't getting much things talked about are the shortcuts that you can set up. Like they have that shortcuts app that it used to be called Workflow, and that team basically just got acquired and brought into Apple, and they sat there for a year, and then a year later they come out with the Workflow app, and it's pretty much a copy paste of the other app. The other app goes away, and like now that thing is so robust in iOS 13. It will be so robust. There's a ton of stuff that you can do with it, just crazy amount of things that you can do with it, and they're allowing. The reason I haven't looked at it is because the triggers that were available for you to do were pretty limited, in how that I wanted to like trigger things in my house. But now it can reach right into HomeKit, and like there's images that people are posting online, like create an automation that works for everyone in the home, and you can create that automation. You can base it based on like when I turn my phone into airplane mode, like when you flip your phone into airplane mode, it can, okay, you must be getting on an airplane. Make sure all the lights are off in the house and the AC is up to whatever, like there's tons of little small things that you can do. NFC tag input, like when I tap an NFC tag, when my phone goes to low power mode, do not disturb, Bluetooth. I saw one where when I plug into CarPlay, trigger a home automation, that kind of thing. So like, if I'm in my car, I plug my phone into the CarPlay, it means I'm leaving the house or I'm somewhere else, make sure that the lights are off and that kind of thing. So there's some major things that you'd be able to do this, and they're not, they've also enabled it to where used to, it would like the shortcuts app would pop up and say, do you want to run this? Do you want to run this shortcut or something like that? And now they're giving it the ability to kind of like, I ran into this once and I like put it away, and I can't really speak to like what exactly I'm talking about here because it's been so long, but basically what they're letting it do is run kind of in the background. So if one of these events or triggers comes along, the phone isn't going to ask you if it needs permission to run these shortcuts. So like it is a full automated thing at that point, and they are flipping that switch now, and making the shortcut stuff in the Shortcuts app, a lot more robust than it was in the past. So that is going to be a huge part of the HomeKit, like Uber automation thing that is like outside of the HomeKit home app, which is what most people will be using. But if the power users and the crazy like iOS people, they're going to be getting into this like Siri or Apple shortcut stuff and doing custom shortcuts and all these kind of things that are really going to bring a powerful ecosystem to HomeKit, which is super exciting.
Yeah, no, great point. It looks like they did quite a few updates there, like you said, to that Shortcuts app, and definitely some overlap there with HomeKit. There's a screenshot here, create an automation, create home automation right there in the Shortcuts app. So really cool. All right, well, let's shift gears here. A couple more things we're going to hit. We'll hit these a little bit quicker that came out of WWDC. Some HomePod updates. Quick one here. Apple announced that HomePod is gaining handoff support, allowing users to place an iPhone near the HomePod to hand over music, podcast, or even a phone call. So I guess that's a kind of a useful feature. Not a game changer, I don't think, but certainly a nice thing to have. And then that was really kind of it for the HomePod, I think, as far as big news. Like you said, there wasn't a ton with HomePod, but
the
maybe we'll have to rethink.
That's a big thing. Like it makes it like I think about how I use my audio device. If I'm listening in the car, I get out of the car, I come inside, and I want to continue listening to whatever I was listening to in the car. Like it makes sense to that whole operation makes sense to me.
Super useful, totally. Yeah, definitely. All right, and then let's touch really quick on tvOS, because I know that this is one that had some really interesting updates. It looks like they're making a lot of progress here with tvOS. So a couple of big ones here. Support for multi-users. So multi-user support, each member of the family can have their own profile.
Yay.
So favorite shows, movies, front and center, up next, recommendations, all of that stuff that you would expect with multi-user support. And that is a great thing. We talk about it a lot on the show here. Very, very few of us live in homes alone. Certainly some of us do, but most of us live in homes where we have other people who are using the technology. So support for multiple users is a nice addition. Looks like some enhancements to the control center, some UX enhancements there. This one, Seth, I thought was really interesting. We don't talk a lot about gaming on the show, but the Apple TVs are now going to be able to support PS4 and Xbox controllers. So this is to get ready for Apple Arcade. Apple, reading here from Mac Rumors, Apple added PlayStation DualShock 4 and Xbox One S controller support to the Apple TV and to iOS devices, so you can use your existing gaming controllers to play your Apple Arcade games.
That's pretty cool.
So very interesting there, I think. Really cool deal for the gamers out there. And then on-screen lyrics in Apple Music. So if you got Apple Music playing on the TV, you can have the lyrics up there, which is kind of nice. And some additional screensavers.
For your karaoke nights, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I think the little screen thing that Amazon has does something similar to that. Yeah, it's always funny. Like I'm over at my sister-in-law has one of those, and like we're over there for like Easter dinner or Thanksgiving or something. And I think last time was Mother's Day, and like some weird like Lil Wayne song comes on randomly because the Amazon Music isn't all that great, and it just has horrible playlists. And like you're looking at the lyrics going, like, is it?
Yeah.
And then I don't know if it's like cool for me to go over there and start talking to Alexa in their house, but like I don't know. It's just it's kind of funny. Like that's one of those socially things.
Is there like a social rules around that? Like, am I allowed to talk to your Alexa?
Can I do it? It's kind of
never thought about that. That's funny.
Kind of feel awkward about it.
That's really funny. Yeah, and then some, like I said, some new screensavers. My kids will like it. Looks like there's an under the sea screensavers, so I'm gonna check that out. My kids are big into sharks and animals in general, but that'll be a cool one for them when the screensaver kicks on. So some nice enhancements there, and it's good to see them continuing to develop on that front as well.
Yep, absolutely. It's a really good event overall. I mean, $30,000 computers, but definitely. We get decent HomeKit upgrades out of it too.
Start saving now.
It's not a chance.
Yeah.
All the links and topics we discussed tonight can be found in our show notes at HomeTech.fm/261. While you're there, don't forget to sign up for our weekly newsletter, which includes even further analysis as well as other industry news that may not have made the show. Again, that link is homekit.fm/261.
You said homekit.fm/261.
Again, that link is HomeTech.fm/261.
All right. Don't forget, you can join us in the chat room live on Wednesdays. We typically start around 7 or 7:30 p.m. in, as Seth likes to call it, the one true time zone. That is Eastern. Again, 7 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern on Wednesdays. Find out more at HomeTech.fm/live.
All right, Jason, no mailbag this week, but I do have a pick of the week, and it had been kind of sitting on this for a while. I wanted to use it a little bit, but it's the Amplify Teleport. I don't know if you remember. We talked about this thing when it first came out. And it's a little...
We did. I vaguely remember this, and I'm trying to remember exactly what it does, but I do remember talking about this.
So it's basically a little VPN device that you can get and pair with your Amplify router. So you get this, you plug it in at your house, you pair it real quick. And then you go to a place like Starbucks, or you go out traveling or whatever, and you plug this thing in, and what it does is you connect to it like you would Starbucks. Like, you have that little screen that pops up, and it walks you through basically connecting it to the Starbucks Wi-Fi. And then once you do that, it creates a VPN from it to the house. So it's a slow process to get up and going, but man, this thing, it actually works really, really well after it gets up and going. I kind of want to have like one or two of these things. Maybe like one. This is my Starbucks Amplify Teleport, and this is my Dunkin' Donuts. Just like have one for each coffee shop, right? Because it is kind of a pain to like wait for it to switch over to the next Wi-Fi and connect in again. But once you have it set up, like it's pretty straightforward. You bring it in, you plug it in, you connect your computer to it, and you're basically living on your home network, and it works really well. It's
from
a good
anywhere.
VPN, yeah. I've taken this out, obviously around town to do work around town. A lot of times with VPNs, I had problems with like connecting to a Control4 system at my house. And this has like the little, when you connect to a Control4 system, it pops up, there's some kind of auto discovery that has been blocked traditionally in the past with VPNs that I've used in the past. With this one, it doesn't block it. Like the Control4 thing just, shows up, the controller shows up to connect to. So that's pretty cool. And then the other thing is when I'm out traveling, I can bring this to like the hotel room and plug it into the wall, connect to the hotel Wi-Fi. And usually I bring along like the Apple TV I have in the garage, and we can use the Plex app on it. And basically, since you're at your home with the Wi-Fi at your home, this thing can basically stream all your Plex movies directly over the Wi-Fi, into your Apple TV, like you're sitting on your local network at home. So it's actually really cool. And what's really nice is like having to do that dance where you go and like set up everybody. Like my wife is like, hey, I get me on Wi-Fi. When we go to the hotel or whatever, she's like, get me on Wi-Fi. You don't have to do that. You just like plug it in. It has the same Wi-Fi as it did before. Her phone connects to it, and everybody's online and happy after you do that, first initial connection. So
interesting.
It's a really cool product.
How much does it cost?
I want to say it was like, here's $100. So it's $99.99, so $100. And I'd say it's, I don't know, if you don't want to set up your own VPN, it's kind of like an easy way to do this, and a super easy way to do this, and it's done right, and it works really well. I've been, aside from the speed of setting it up the first time, like if you go to the coffee shop, you'll probably be done with your coffee by the time you're done setting it up. It's like, all right, I just want to work now, and I've drinking all this coffee. So get a large or grande or a venti. Get a venti, and then plug this thing in and get ready. But it's a pretty cool product. Been happy with it.
Very cool. Yeah, that's a great pick. Definitely have to check that out. I think it's a nice way. It's always on the back of my mind when I'm out at coffee shops and things like that, and I'll hop onto those public hotspots, but I'm always a little bit leery, and certainly not doing anything sensitive when I'm on those, like checking my bank account or anything like that. But yeah, this is a nice way to do it. I typically, if I need to do anything that I'm worried about, I'll pull out the hotspot on my phone rather than using like a public hotspot. But no, this is a great way to do that without using a great way to accomplish that privacy, I should say, without using your cellular data. So
Yeah,
pretty neat.
It prevents all those man-in-the-middle attacks, and you're secure as long as you're using it, and you don't have to use the public Wi-Fi. So yeah, it's for $100, pretty good product. And I see here that they can bundle it now. They bundle it with the kit with the Amplify HD router, which is a decent router, and Amplify Teleport for $229. So not a bad deal.
All right. Well, if you have any feedback, questions, comments, picks of the week, or great ideas for a topic or guest, give us a shout. Our email address is feedback@HomeTech.fm. Once again, that's feedback@HomeTech.fm, or visit our website at HomeTech.fm/feedback and fill out our online form.
And we want to give a big thank you to everyone who supports the show, but especially those who are able to financially support the show through our Patreon page. If you don't know our Patreon page, head on over to HomeTech.fm/support to learn how you can support HomeTech for as little as $1 a month. Any pledge over $5 per month gets you a shout out on the show, but every pledge gets you a automated private invite to our Slack channel, The Hub, where you and other supporters of the show can gather every day and mistakenly say HomeKit instead of HomeTech over and over. What the heck am I doing? I'm really having to think about this. All right, where you and other supporters of the show can gather every day for inside baseball conversations about all aspects of home technology.
Absolutely. And if you want to support the show but can't do so financially, we'd love a 5-star review on iTunes or positive rating in your podcast app of choice. Those reviews definitely help other people find the show. So if you enjoy what we do here at HomeTech, take a minute to spread the love by leaving us a review. We would appreciate it.
Well, Jason, that wraps up this week. Are you going to run out and install the iOS beta on your phone?
Who are you talking to? Like, do you even have to ask? There's no way that's going to happen.
Angry. That was a very angry response.
There's no way.
Who do you think you're talking to?
There's no way. I'm not a beta guy. I'm not on the, there's the early adopters, and then there's the, I'm just in the meat of that curve, whatever that is. The mainstream adoption, I guess.
Oh, yeah. You're not the laggard.
I'm not a laggard. Sometimes I can be a laggard, let's be honest. But that's not out of like a fear of technology. That's just usually conflicting priorities. But yeah, no, I'll probably be passing on the beta, Seth. I'm going to rely on you, as I usually do, to go out there and test these things and tell me all of the reasons why I should continue waiting.
Yeah. No, I don't. I am not a beta participant. Well, if it gets further along, I'll probably update. But I am not an early beta participant. So, like, give me a couple months when I start hearing news reports that it's fairly stable. I will probably put it on my device as part of the public beta, but not
yet.
Not part of not this one. No, not the developer beta. It's definitely.
I understand.
Don't do it.
You're preaching to the choir, brother.
Yeah, but all in all, really good updates from Apple, from the
sure.
WWDC keynote, especially around what we cover, the HomeKit side. But there's other good stuff, so we'll put some links in the show notes if you're interested and didn't get a chance to sit down and watch the keynote. It's a 2-hour keynote. I think there was one story we had that was like a summary in like 9 minutes or something like that. It's like you could just run down everything that happened in 9 minutes, and that's probably the way to watch it, because 2 hours is no fun, and 9 minutes, get the bullet points. That's all you need.
That's right. Give me the short version. All right, cool, Seth. Well, great show. Look forward to reconnecting again with you next week.
Sounds good, Jason. Have a great weekend.
All right, take care.